Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. This is The Lay of the Land, and my name is Jeff Rich, and we are coming to you during Championship Thursday. I think that we'll call every day of our lives the Championship Day as long as we're defending the Cleveland Cavaliers 2015-2016 NBA Championship, which wrapped up on Sunday night with a thrilling Game 7. And that's why I'm coming to you a little bit later in the week, because it was just completely pointless to try to record on Saturday for everything to go stale, not knowing what was going to happen in Game 7, though I kind of had a feeling what was going to happen in Game 7, going as far back as the Game 5 victory. I wanted to talk Cavs today. I want to talk to somebody that's been in Cleveland this week, that's soaked in the atmosphere, whether it was a watch party on Sunday night, just being in downtown Cleveland on Sunday night, and of course Wednesday morning, the parade, which in my opinion honored all of Cleveland, with Stipe Miocic being the lead car in the parade after his UFC title. He kind of prognosticated the Cavaliers would win this NBA title. So, you had him, the Lake Erie Monsters, the AHL affiliate of the Columbus Blue Jackets. They bring home the Calder Cup. They actually sweep Hershey, PA, in the highest level of minor league hockey, to my knowledge anyway. I'm not very well versed on the topic, but they bring home a minor league title. The Quicken Loans Arena gets to celebrate a championship at home, and then the big one, Sunday night, Cavaliers finish off coming back from 3-1 to win the series 4-3, 93-89. Hold Golden State scoreless for what felt like an eternity on Sunday night in the fourth quarter. And, it's the stars at the end of the day. It's LeBron James. It's Kyrie Irving. And speaking of stars, let's bring on my good Twitter friend. First time I'm talking to him, to be honest with you. He's Dan Arnelli, at Dan0708 on Twitter. Dan, what's up? How you feeling tonight?
Man, like I was telling you before, winning is exhausting. So I'm exhausted, but I'm in a very good mood. This week's been very pleasant for me.
I was pretty optimistic about trying to record this. We're actually going Thursday night. I usually try to record Saturday or Sunday. I was willing to postpone till Monday, but the people that do the journalism thing full time, they've just been so damn busy, and the people that have fun doing it have, rightfully so, decided to have fun and soak this in. So availability has been sparse. I thought we were shooting for the moon trying to go yesterday, and when I saw that it was 4:50 Eastern time and the rally at the mall had yet to end, I'm just here thinking, I was like, even if Dano can manage to make it all the way back out to Lake County from downtown in an hour and a half or whenever we had it scheduled, even if he can make it, is he going to be awake, aware, and for that matter, have a voice? Because, I go to college football games out here in Arizona, and I never have a voice on Sunday morning when I have to do my live radio show.
Yeah, it was crazy because I think just now my voice is coming back, and that was from Sunday. I didn't yell too much at the parade. I was more focused with holding up my sign for Kyrie and Richard Jefferson to see, so I didn't yell too much. There was actually a nice lady beside me that was doing all the yelling for me, but no, I wasn't too hoarse, but exhausting. Like I said, that was the word when I came back from the parade. I just kind of laid on the floor, just rested my head a little bit, and I went out for 6 hours.
No, you wanted RJ to see your sign. There's a little bit of a backstory here. If you've read the essay in the Players Tribune, which Richard Jefferson almost seems to mock himself for writing it in his conversation with Allie Clifton, where he says he's retiring. I kind of took it in jest. I don't know that I took that as anything official when he said that on Sunday night, but in his, he refers to his essay, the Players Tribune, where he talks about how he's just, he's the old guy. He hasn't been on social media, and he picked up Snapchat from some of the younger guys throughout the year. And you would say that you were one of the first guys on board with RJ Snapchat?
Yeah, I would definitely say that, because I actually remember, I've actually brought this up on Twitter a couple times, but I remember I was watching one of his snaps, because I'm really big on, I think for a while, a lot of Cavs Twitter is focused on what the Cavs players have done on social media. And we're always talking about how bad they are on Twitter specifically. A lot of the guys are really boring. And then, so when I kind of went to Snapchat, I was trying to find all these players' snaps, and Richard Jefferson was one of the guys that I first found. And I remember his first days, he kept snapping other people, asking him how to use it. And I remember Delhi was one of the first guys he was asking how to use it, because Delhi was using it for a little bit.
So he's putting these aid-seeking snaps in his store, in his public story as well.
Yeah, he was actually using he was using opposing players too. Like I'm pretty sure one of the guys he was asking was Andre Iguodala, who I do not follow on Snap, but it was weird because he is the old guy trying to figure out how to use social media, because he was just using every resource he could. And Delhi one night after a game, Delhi comes over and he goes, "What's your purpose?" in his like Australian accent, and I lost it and I tweeted it out. And there was one day where we were actually talking about social media for the Cavs players, and I mentioned that I think RJ has in my opinion, I thought he took over for Andy's, I think I said, I don't know if it was Instagram or Twitter when he was traded, but I was being biased there because I'm a huge Andy fan. But anyway, I thought RJ's Snap account was becoming the best Cavs social media around. And a couple months later, I think it was, for whatever reason, I go to look because everybody's tweeting about this RJ snap. And I was like, what are you talking about? RJ hasn't snapped in a day. And I go to look to add him because I don't see him on my thing. And I click the ad and it says RJeff24 cannot be found. So he blocked me and I couldn't figure out why.
Rich Jeff from Jeff Rich. Unblock Dano, man. What is up with that? If you're not retiring, if you're going to continue to play basketball, you're going to continue to snap, you got to let the man follow you. He discovered you, man. So, you mentioned Andy. I want to kind of segue into the transition to the dark side.
Yeah.
Did you feel, not just Twitter, but around people, I'm sure, did you feel that there was some element of turning on Andy with that first flop in the finals?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it even started before then. I think it's a natural tendency, because if it was somebody, I don't know if it was somebody else, like if it was some random player that did well for the Cavs, he was traded, cut, and then went with the Warriors, if there would be that level of animosity towards somebody. I think it's just because Andy was such a beloved player, and right or wrong, people felt cheated a little bit that he went to a rival. We saw it with LeBron because we loved him so much. And of course there was a lot more context around that situation, but I think the emotions just run high because you love a guy so much. And then, you can't have the same feelings when he goes to a team that you're going to be playing in a 7-game series with. So I think,
and he got significant minutes. Am I incorrect to say that?
For sure. And he played so much that people were questioning Steve Kerr about why he was playing so many minutes. I think he helped a little bit. I also think he hurt a lot because I was actually talking to, I can't remember who I was talking to about, one of the Fear the Sword writers, but, we were talking about, we don't think Andy flopped. Of course he flopped a lot earlier in his career when LeBron was first around. When LeBron left, Andy really came into his own as a player, and he didn't really need to rely on that. He got a jump shot. He was decent on defense. He led the league in rebounding for that 1 year before he got hurt. So he didn't really need to rely on it. Now all of his physical gifts have been just worn down by injuries. He's 32, 33 right now, and he kind of needs the flopping. And, we saw in the finals that some refs, didn't really – they called some calls in his favor, even though they know the player that he is. And now he just needs to rely on flopping. So,
can you listen to the analysts on ABC? I know that they're referred to as the Three Stooges, Breen, Jackson, and Van Gundy.
I actually like Mike Breen, but yeah, I'm with you on the other two. They're jackasses.
The analysis, but there was one thing that they said, and I think that they talked to Steve Javi about it at some point, and that was that these officials are going to be offended when they go back and look at the replay at what Verjao is doing to them, basically. I mean, the referees end up being victimized in this whole thing because whenever there's a call that lends itself to any question, you have 50% of the country that's completely against it. And I think that it rang true the rest of the series. I think that Verjao didn't get another call after, was it game 1 or 2 that it was really bad. It was about a 17-foot stumble and fall back.
Right. I think there were a lot of games that he was actually trying to do that, and they did cut down on it later. But I mean, this year he's had to rely on it so much. It's like he's done that before, and I was just, I get that they're trying to call it evenly, but sometimes there's a player that has a reputation for doing a certain thing. And just like the players watch tape, I'm imagining the refs do too. And there were just some calls that were like, even if it's borderline, who the player is, his tendencies. How do you call that in their favor? So, I mean, they got better at the end, though. Yeah.
I want to circle back to the refs in a second, but while we're on Andy still, I want to kind of talk about the symmetry between Verjao and Tristan Thompson. I think that you could fairly say, if your Cavs goes back far enough to remember when Andy kind of got the big contract, and there was some questions whether he'd earned it to date, and then he went out and earned that contract. And I think that the same thing was true. I think that there was it was almost a pass-fail thing for the team as a whole, for the chemistry of the team. And, that circulates around LeBron James. Let's not kid ourselves that bringing Tristan Thompson back was bigger than just having the offensive rebounder, the guy that eventually became the starting center because Mozgov fell off so much this year. But for his play in the playoffs alone and actually throughout the season, Tristan Thompson seems like he's well on his way to earning $82 million. Am I crazy to say that?
No, I think because last year we definitely saw it because Tristan had a lot of games where his offensive rebounds led to some critical points for the Cavs, and he did that again in a huge way this year, especially in the finals this year, which, of course, ended up to being a championship team. It's interesting because when Tristan first came, I wasn't sure if Andy and Tristan could play together. Andy was able to develop a jumper that was pretty nice, so that created a little bit of spacing. But of course, Andy started getting hurt, and Tristan. It's polar opposite with those two because Andy had a lot of trouble staying healthy, and then you have Tristan who's played. Gosh, I can't even remember how many games in a row he's played.
Like 300 some.
300, and it's just the health has been different. Andy's jumpers kind of deteriorated. Everything about Andy's deteriorated, and some of the things that were great about Andy has kind of translated to Tristan, and I would like to think that Andy's helped with Tristan's development a little bit. But yeah, it was weird because I remember there was a deadline for the Cavs and Tristan to get a contract done, and people were kind of on pins and needles waiting for that, and it comes out that Andy actually gets the big deal. And me being a huge Anderson Varejao fan, I was really ecstatic because he survived trade rumors for so many years, and I've never wanted to trade him. Maybe there was once that I was like, okay, well, maybe if we can get this for Andy, that would be the best. But I still, it sucked to see him go. But I'm definitely I get where the questioning comes from because at the time even I knew that was a deal for being quote unquote loyal, and it was not for it wasn't going to be for his future play. It was definitely for what he's done in the past.
Right. Put a bow on this Varejao conversation, and all due respect to Varejao and how we had to be competitive and how we had to look at him as the enemy. At the end of the day, when we're celebrating. There's a somber moment when you remember how much that Bergeron put forth for this organization, and that at the end of the day, he doesn't get to be there for the pinnacle. And to be honest with you, it took maybe not going 15 deep, but making the rotation what it was certainly led to an NBA championship at the end of the day.
And I think he played half the season with the Cavs, and for him at that stage in his career, that was accomplishment enough. He played some good minutes. I don't think he was as bad as people thought, but in the end, maybe that didn't really matter to them.
There were some contributors throughout the year that were just there for what they needed to be there for. I could even reference Jared Cunningham, the way that Mo played until Christmas when Kyrie came back. Everybody had their stats. Mozgov, it was kind of sad to see the rapid decline in his game, but it forced Tristan to step up. I thought that Love was there throughout the regular season. I thought Love had a great playoffs, and I thought that Love had a great Game 7 in the finals. So, everybody just had a role. And, I think that there was some level of sincerity in LeBron at the rally when he recognized each and every player that may not have been there 3 or 4 years ago when he was at the Heat, and certainly not, before he was 26 with the Cavaliers in his first time around.
Watching that parade, watching that rally at the end, hearing LeBron talk, it really brought me back to 8th grade, actually, because, you go through a whole season in CYO, and then you have the banquet at the end of the year, and the coach says something about every player. And LeBron is even talking about Sasha Kaun. And I saw somebody on Twitter say, man, it's a good thing LeBron had that Jayhawk connection, because otherwise he would have had nothing to say. And it's just funny because
earlier tonight, right before I came out, I actually tweeted out that it was nice words for him to say anything. And you know what? People didn't get upset about him not mentioning Mario Chalmers and his time with the Heat. He doesn't have to disavow that. That's kind of a cool thing that we could just all the cards are on the table and it's all good now. But I tweeted out earlier that. And I think I saw Dave McMenamin or Pat McMenamin, or one of those local guys in Cleveland to tweet out that he hasn't really seen Sasha Kahn's purpose on the team other than to give Mozgov someone to talk to.
Yeah, it's hard because I've always felt, and maybe this is the bench player in me coming out, but I always thought that every guy to a man, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, hockey, what have you, if you're on the team, you deserve that ring. You deserve to kiss that trophy because you're going there every day and practicing. Practice, we always make fun of Allen Iverson for that practice bit, but it's like you're showing up every day for practice. People might not see you on the court, but you're working your butt off. And in case somebody goes down, practice is what's keeping you, prepared. And
LeBron actually prefaced a lot of things with, telling the crowd, these are the things that you don't see. I'm telling you stories about the things you don't see.
Yeah, and I know he said, Kaun was there to help Mozgov, and Mozgov unfortunately wasn't that good this year. But those guys, you never know when somebody's going to go down. Look at what happened to the Cavs last year. They had Kyrie and Love go out. And they stole, quite honestly, they should have been swept in that series. And they stole 2 games, and it was because they had guys laying it on the line, like, Delly stepped up big time. You need to stay prepared for any situation. And going in there in the practice gym every day and working your butt off, that deserves a ring.
All right, I don't want to go too far off on a tangent here, but you brought up CYO. I know we grew up in the same part of town. So, if you're willing to spill it, who'd you play CYO ball for? Prior to high school.
I played for St. John Vianney for my school, which is a different name. It's All Saints because they're in 2 different cities, but played for St. John Vianney.
Okay. As long as you didn't say like St. Gabe's or St. Mary's Manor, and I don't even know if those guys are still around. It's been, man, I'm dating myself, but 25 years since I played for Immaculate Conception. So, but anyway, I wanted to circle back to the refs. You said the Cavs stole some games. Game 5, and I didn't really even know it right afterwards because I did a radio show live on Sunday from, I guess it's 11 to 1 Eastern time. And, but my co-host mentioned it looks like Draymond's going to be suspended. And it was like news to me that they were even considering it. Actually, I'd seen some mention of it the night before, but I didn't really feel it was imminent. And, I can't really deny that it really shifted the tide in the series.
Yeah, for sure did. And actually, I was at the game that caused his suspension. It was Game 4 in Cleveland, and that was when LeBron stepped over him, and then Draymond kind of flung his arm up and hit LeBron in the area. And at the time, I didn't even see it because I was in Loudville. I was in the very last section of the stadium, but
you got in the house, man. I went to game 3 of the World Series in '95, and that's kind of, even though the Indians ended up losing the series, they won that game. And, I know that the Cavs lost Game 4, but you got to be part of that finals atmosphere, which, if you go back 15 years, it's once in a generation or perhaps never, as was the case with the Cavs prior to 2007. So, it's really nice to know that you got to be part of it. But you were saying you were up in Loudville.
Yeah, so I was up in Loudville, and I was actually watching LeBron in that play. He was off ball guarding Draymond because I saw in the corner of my eye Draymond fell, and LeBron walked over him. And I didn't see any swipes or anything because I had the bad angle, but they kind of went after each other, and the play was still going on, and somebody shot the ball and it missed, and then they started getting into a scuffle, and then it wasn't until I got home that I realized that Draymond was kind of, he swiped that up at LeBron, and then he got up and kind of like swung at him, and I was like, at that time I didn't think he was going to get suspended. Because, obviously he's taken so many – look at what he did to Steven Adams, and he hadn't been suspended for him. But then I realized that he only needed one more technical to get suspended, and I was like, maybe the NBA kind of finds a way to get him back in because obviously they want him to play because he would have been suspended for what he did to Steven Adams in the Western Conference Finals. But, yeah, I was shocked that he was suspended.
If you suspend J.R. Smith for what he did in Boston a year ago – you have to suspend Draymond Green for throwing his arms. I don't care who it is. A lot of people have suggested that this was set up for LeBron to get at least another game out of this series. And, he was swinging his arm. I don't care if he's swinging his arms at Dellavedova or Sasha Khan or Shumpert. You can't do that. And, if you want to be pissed about the Draymond Green suspension, look at 1 second left in what was it, like Game 4 of the Houston series, where he throws Beasley to the ground. They're down 1. I think Houston had the ball, so it was really kind of over. And he throws the guy to the ground. What a waste of those precious flagrant foul points that you actually have.
And I think the NBA kind of set itself up for that, for those complaints, just because of the precedent they sent. Again, going back to Steven Adams, I'm going to keep harping on it, but there was the obvious nut kick that the infamous photo, but there was also one play where I think they actually called the foul on Adams, or either they called the foul on Adams and they corrected it, but they were going up for a rebound and Draymond's kind of yanking his arm like Olynyk did to Love last year in the playoffs, and that's a play that that could have ripped his arm socket out like Love, and he could have been suspended for that, and they kind of let it go as a common foul, and the NBA kind of just set itself up for that.
We're going to hear a lot about it over the next 3 weeks. I'm going to use the term ad nauseum, but can this team add Durant? Will it work for their chemistry? Will it make them a better team? And, I guess at the end of the day, the thing that I want to know most is it a better move for Kevin Durant than remaining in Oklahoma City with what he's got there and what he's built there?
If Kevin Durant went to the Warriors, I do think it would. I think it would work. I think a lot of people would be worried about, even when the big 3 formed for the Cavs, they always say, there's only one ball. Each guy is ball dominant. They need the ball in their hands to be successful. But I think Durant is such a good player both ways, and I think he's such an unselfish player he's had to kind of adjust to Russell kind of coming into his own, because he's had his injury troubles the last couple of years. Even last year when they missed the playoffs, Russ kind of had to carry that team, and Kevin kind of realized that, hey, I need to get this guy the ball a lot more, and I think Kevin could be the one to sacrifice a little bit. At the same time, I also think he'd probably still be the best team if he went the best on the Warriors if he went that way. But I do think it would work, and it would scare the living hell out of everybody, because obviously you would have a big four there with Draymond, KD, Steph, and Clay, and Draymond doesn't need the ball to be successful. I mean, he's good with it, but he makes his bones on the defensive side, and Clay and Steph, they're always there to shoot. KD is he's an all-world player, and I think that could work no matter what kind of depth you have. The biggest weakness of that team would maybe be what else can you add? And so when you're going into the playoffs, it's like, can this team keep going? Will they get fatigued? But I think it would work.
I mean, you signed Durant, Bogut's out. So, I mean, are you looking at Ezeli starting with that unit with Draymond, Durant, Steph, and Clay?
I think in that situation, Draymond would have to go to the 5. And then I don't know if the Warriors would want to drop Durant down to the 4 to complete that small ball lineup. Then it's a question of who do you bring in at the 3? And at that point, does it really matter that much with that squad?
Because Harrison Barnes is gone, correct?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, he didn't do himself any favors with the finals he put up. I think somebody's going to overpay for him and regret it. It's not going to be the Warriors, but I think because Ezeli's a free agent too, he might be gone, because I don't think he had the season that the Warriors wanted him to. I mean, you even saw Steve Kerr was giving minutes to Varys out there in the finals, and I think Ezeli's going to get paid because he's a really athletic dude, and there's always teams that think they can turn athletic guys into really good players, and maybe Ezeli becomes that. Maybe he comes over. Depending on what the market is, maybe the Cavs go after him, depending on what they want to do with Mozgov. But either way, I think in that situation, which I do think I don't think KD is going to leave, but the 1% chance that he does go to the Warriors, I think Draymond drops down to the 5.
Well, how much does the reported, we're talking on draft night, so nothing's confirmed, but this reported Ibaka for Oladipo trade, gets another shooter in the mix for Oklahoma City. I think that's more replacing Reggie Jackson than it is Durant insurance. But losing Serge Ibaka, that seems like it would influence Kevin Durant's decision, given everything that Serge brings to the floor.
When I first saw that trade, and that was only a couple hours ago, I was like, I can't believe they would actually do that. And then I saw the return, and Victor Oladipo is a really good player. I think he's most known for his defensive prowess, but he actually shot the ball well from 3 last year. So I think he could still provide some floor spacing, and him and Russ on the defensive side is going to be insane. And then Ersan Ilyasova, I've liked him. One of my buddies and I, we've liked him since we were like sophomores in high school, and we were talking about maybe the Cavs could get Ersan Ilyasova, and that was back when LeBron was still on the Heat, and I've kind of followed him a little bit, and he's a pretty good shooter for how tall he is. He kind of got paid a lot of money, so maybe that kind of led people to think that he's not as good as he is, but he's going to be able to stretch the floor as well as Oladipo for that team. So I don't think that hurts KD's chances of coming back. It kind of changes the team a little bit in terms of who they can use, but I think it's better for them. I think it adds depth, and I think it also helps the Magic because Ibaka is still a hell of a player, and I don't know why people keep undervaluing him, but maybe it's just because he's a different player from what he used to be. But I think the popular opinion, and something I agree with, is this deal is good for both sides.
Does Joakim Noah make sense for the Warriors, and vice versa? Do they make sense for him?
It makes sense in that they'll probably see the Cavs again, and they're both natural rivals. But
there's a history, right?
Yeah.
There's a brief. That's something that's really fired up really quickly. and it feels bold to say you got to compare what Cleveland and Golden State have going on right now to Boston and the Lakers in the 80s. And, yeah, I'll be honest with you, I'm a little young to be completely privy to the history there, other than knowing that Bird and Magic had the Converse deal together, and they were supposed to dislike each other. They played each other in college in the national championship, so they had a deep-seated history. Whereas LeBron and Steph, they were born in the same place, and I guess it's kind of stops there. They each have an NBA or they each have at least one NBA title,
right? MVPs, but no. Man, Noah used to be so good, and I used to hate him so much. I mean, I still do, but I don't see him working for he's like Varejao. I mean, they're not the same player, obviously, but it kind of sucks a little bit because he's not the same player he used to be. I don't know how useful he is anymore. He's getting up there in age. He's gotten injury problems. I don't know who he works for anymore. But yeah, if the Warriors want to add more heat to that rivalry, yeah, go add Joakim Noah.
Is there anybody from the Wizards we can add in that's that can still walk and actually give the team valuable minutes, or has it been so long since that rivalry that those guys are either retired on the rocking chair or probably in jail or dead, right?
I tried to revive. I think a lot of us tried to revive that rivalry, and it was around the point where LeBron came back, and we were trying to say that Kyrie and Dion were the best the best Eastern Conference backcourt against Beal and Wall, and of course we know how that turned out. But I guess the Wizards rivalry is dead. They can't make the playoffs, and Boston's sticking around. The Hawks are,
and we're going to take the Bulls behind the barn and shoot them before the week is over, right?
It looks like they're trying to shoot themselves trying to trade Jimmy Butler. I don't really get that. I mean, I guess he had a down year, but he's still I would still consider him a superstar. He's still a great two-way player.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of two-way players in the wings, if Jefferson is not the answer next year, what can the Cavaliers do to put a player on the court that's maybe younger than LeBron to supplement him when he rests at the end of quarters?
That's going to be huge, especially for the regular season. I was actually a couple weeks now. I wasn't saying I thought the Cavs season was over, but after games 1 and 2, I was kind of looking at free agents. And it's like it's either you're getting the best of the best, you're going to have to max this guy, or it's the bottom of the bottom. And I just didn't see a lot of options out there. It would definitely be helpful to have Richard Jefferson back. I don't know how much you're going to be able to rely on him, because even though he did well this year, he shot well this year too before the playoffs started.
He was great. He was great from deep early in the season. He was just such a joy to take on, especially after how things didn't really work out with Marion a year ago.
Right, and that's the thing, because me included, I think a lot of people thought Jefferson was going to be the Marion replacement, and he's far and away exceeded expectations. That said, he's going to be 36 years old next season. I mean, guys that go from their age 35 to age 36 season, I don't know how many of them have better years or even equivalent years. So I think we should expect to see some drop off if he does come back.
Yeah, it's sad to see these careers get bookended throughout my adult life. I've been out here 15 years now, so I saw Jefferson play at Arizona, and I saw Marion when he was a star with when the team was basically built around him before they reacquired Nash. So, the sun sets on professional athletes, and obviously they have generational wealth to enjoy it. But man, sometimes the time just passes so quickly.
And I keep telling people, I wish we would have had Jefferson the whole 15 years. I didn't realize, kind of how good of a player he was. He never, at least to me, he never got a lot of traction from the national media. I didn't really know what to expect when he came in. And also, I didn't realize the type of person he was. I mean, he's, aside from Snapchat, you see him on these post-game interviews and the interviews on FSO and all that, and he's a really likable guy, and it's a shame that the Cavs are only gonna get him for a year or two.
Well, you got to see each and every one of them on Wednesday at the parade. Tell me about your vantage point. Tell me, like, kind of how your day. I don't want to say that your day is the typical day, but I kind of want to get it out there. How much time some people, perhaps yourself included, put into celebrating and being there to support your team. If you didn't make it, there were 1.29999 million other people that supplemented your place quite well. But if you don't mind, just I hate to put this question to anybody because it's so lazy, but talk about your day.
No, not a problem. Yeah, so my brother and I, we both didn't have work that day. I was able to get work off and switch it for tomorrow, but so we were planning on they blocked off so many garages and parking lots that we were like, we're probably only going to be able to find one spot, and who knows how many people are going to be there. But so we decided to take Lake Tran from Mentor to Cleveland, which is about a half-hour drive, and we get there at 5:45, and there's probably at least 200 people in line already.
This is the line for the park and ride.
Yeah. This isn't even Cleveland. This is just for the bus ride.
Wow.
And we finally get up to the bus and we leave, and our bus driver actually got lost and almost hit somebody. But so we
only in Cleveland.
Yeah. So we thought we were there early enough to get a decent spot because we were shooting high. We wanted to see the rally at the end. So we were kind of walking around.
And Dan, the way that it was kind of put to me was it almost felt like you had to choose whether you're going to watch the parade or go to or get a good spot at the rally.
Yeah, that was it. That was exactly how it was, and we saw this line kind of forming around the mall. We were like, "What the heck is this line for?" And we eventually realized that was kind of the line to get into the grass area to have the stage right in front of you. And we were kind of on the side, and I'm like, well, at least we can kind of see them. Maybe somebody will look to the left of them, and they'll see me with my big-ass sign. And then it kind of got weird because we were standing there for probably 2.5 hours, and luckily the sun wasn't hot by then because you were shoulder to shoulder with everybody. And this was on the
how hot was it?
It got pretty hot when it was like noon, 1 o'clock. Of course, it probably got mid-80s. At least it felt that way anyway. But so we were standing on the middle of this, standing on the side of the stage, outside of the grass area, and all of a sudden they open the gates for people to go in, and there's just like a funnel of like everybody just runs right in, and people were getting trampled. I've never seen anything like, not even on Sunday night. That was like the craziest thing I've ever seen from a crowd. And I guess like somebody was holding a kid and like they dropped it, and I was getting pushed up against a porta potty, and my sign was almost ripped in half. It was.
Well, at least they had porta potties.
Yeah, and it was crazy too because one was available, and then one was like, it was so crowded people couldn't get in, but people are trying to get in, and it was just a mess. And there were cops watching, and they're just kind of, they were honestly kind of enjoying it because there was so many people. Everybody turned out to be safe and everything, but there were people having panic attacks, and my brother started getting claustrophobic. I was starting to get a little hot, and once we realized there weren't going to let anybody else in, we were like, all right, let's just try to get a spot for the parade. So we're walking around. We probably walk around for 15 minutes, and we settle on Lakeside and 9th. And I have a decent view. I'm not on the street, but I'm on the curb, probably second row on the curb. And the thing is supposed to start at 11. And we're waiting. We probably waited 2 or 3 hours. So we were probably there. No, I'll say 2 hours. We were there at around 9:30. We were waiting for 11 o'clock to roll around. And we're waiting. And I'm trying to check Twitter for updates. And, of course, there's no service because there's literally a million people there. And I'm starting to hear that they're delaying it. And I'm starting to hear that, they don't have barricades on the streets to keep people off. So they're trying to manually move people so they have room for all these floats and vehicles. And it was,
you didn't even hear a whisper of the city talking about planning the parade. It was almost
Right.
like, you've heard in the past these teams that, they go up 3-1, 3-2, and their city starts planning a parade, and the media gets a hold of the information, and suddenly you jinx the team. That's not true. But it is bad juju, and I honestly think that they wouldn't even put a pencil to paper about a parade until the buzzer went on Sunday night.
I wouldn't I wouldn't blame them a little bit, but being there, it's like you kind of had after Game 6 to plan it, and I was thinking, the only thing that didn't feel rushed about that parade was the actual parade, because it was kind of chaotic, just even maneuvering. I know a million people in that city is kind of hard to prepare for, but I mean, it just felt like they shouldn't have done that yesterday. They probably should have pushed it back a little bit.
I would have loved for it to have been on Saturday. I would have been there if
Yeah.
it was Saturday. But I mean, how many days do you want to drag these guys along? They want to start their off seasons.
And I think that's probably why they didn't want to do it on a weekend. It was because they would have had even more people come. But yeah, so we stood in two places for like 3 hours. And then when we were on 9th, it was this. We had buildings covering the sun, but eventually it started getting late, and they delayed the parade, and the sun was just beating on us. And I didn't sleep that night because I usually go to sleep late, and I figured we're gonna leave at 5:30. There's no real reason for me to sleep, so I was going on 30 hours of no sleep. I didn't eat that day, didn't drink anything. I was exhausted. Everything from my hips down were hurting. I felt like it was just bone to cement. And finally, the parade started at I think it started 2 hours, an hour and a half after it was supposed to, and it was kind of a tease because I don't know how these parades go. I thought there was going to be a few cars, and then the players would show up, but it was Stipe Miocic was there, the Monsters hockey team, MGK, some trolleys carrying random people. There's the owners, cheerleaders, just anybody that has any kind of duty in Cleveland was in that parade before the players were. And it was like, I didn't say it out loud, but I was like, I don't care about all these people. Just because at that point I just wanted to see the players. That's what I was there for. But I'm sure if like I was there for waiting for an hour, I would have been like, all right, yeah, the Monsters, they won the Calder Cup. Good for them. But at that point I was like, no.
Like I said in the open, with the other teams, Ernest Biner and Bernie Kosar, even the mayor of Cleveland, Frank Jackson, all those guys, it was a celebration of the city. You're never going to have a gathering that large in Cleveland again, even if there's another championship. I'm not even going to suggest it because it's so impossible. But even if there's another championship parade downtown for the Indians or the Cavaliers, there's not going to be that rush that there was, getting off the schneid after 52 years.
I totally agree. And even as impatient as I was when I saw the Monsters hockey team and when I saw guys that looked like the Cavs and it wasn't the Cavs, even though it kind of sucked at the time because I was waiting for so long, it was something that was necessary because, like you said, this was a Cleveland celebration. This was something that we haven't seen in 50 years. And I even heard a lot of people say that they really liked seeing all those groups of people from Cleveland, and even the older generation was that they really dig that MGK was there. That was a name that they're familiar with, so that was really cool. And it really
so we didn't get any Kid Cudi.
No, he's don't even get me started with Kid Cudi because I used to love him, but he's just making some crappy music right now. That
I just don't keep up with the times. Like I'm kind of on Pursuit of Happiness and Day and Night and Make Say. So that's probably like 4 years ago, and that's probably towards the top of my playlist as far as it goes with that artist. So, did you catch any of the rally, or did you end up catching that remotely?
As soon as I can't remember who the last player we saw was, but as soon as we realized the players were done, we were out of there because, like I said, I was hurting. I needed food. I needed water. I was actually trying to get some kind of just pay for some kind of drink downtown, and every place was packed. And we actually had my parents were coming from Vegas, and they landed right when we were leaving, so they actually picked us up. So when I got home, the rally was on, so I watched it from there, and I think they were introducing all the players when I started watching the rally.
All right. Hey, weird transition here, but you want to talk Tribe for a couple minutes? It seems like they should get their due even on a program like this.
They were undefeated at home this month, so yeah, why not?
And realistically, this upcoming week, I don't believe in jinxes or anything like that, but Detroit, who they've owned thus far, Detroit's playing some pretty good ball lately, and then they go to Atlanta. Atlanta's not as bad at home as they were when I looked at the schedule at the beginning of the month. I thought they'd be 16-12 this month. They look like they're going to blow that out of the water unless they completely screw the pooch in Detroit, Atlanta, and Toronto.
Yeah, I think with the way the Indians, it's almost like it's happening again. Like we're gonna be waiting for the bottom to fall out, because
does this feel like the surge that they had at the beginning of, I want to say it was 2011 when they first introduced the road grays. They went on the road early in the season and they just tore through Seattle, Oakland, and Anaheim. They were like 30-15, right. and then they were like 44-47.
I want to say some people are feeling like that, but I guess I just want – maybe it's the Cleveland championship, but I want to believe that this is legit, because obviously you don't have Brantley. And coming into the year, even with him, you were maybe not expecting this much run production from them. And now it's happening without Brantley. The pitching is – I guess you could say it's living up to its hype, maybe not from the players you would expect it to. But I think the offense is the thing that we need to keep an eye on. I'm not saying it's going to go down, but compared to expectations for this year, it's really weird to see, and I'm glad it's happening. And I'm glad a guy like Napoli has come in here and has given us some power that we haven't seen probably since Pronk.
And you know what? I was really low on Uribe coming into the year. I watched him play the last couple of seasons, but not following teams like the White Sox, the Mets, the Dodgers, wherever he was on a day-to-day basis, I don't think I got quite the understanding of what kind of leader he is to the Latin players in that locker room. Not just the Latin players, but everybody. But we've heard it mentioned all over the news, all over social media that though Kyrie Irving didn't like the question, there's, he only has one father. There's certainly a paternal connection or a big brother connection, to say the least, between Uribe and Jose Ramirez, who's having a hell of a year.
Yeah, you hit that right. You hit that nail right on the head. I think that's something that not a lot of people pay attention to, that some of the foreign players do need that connection from teammates to teammates. And I think that the Indians have done a really good job of trying to bring in guys that have been all in, so to speak. They've been really good clubhouse guys, but haven't necessarily performed well on the field. Napoli's a guy that's a really good clubhouse guy, but he's also producing on the field this time. Uribe, of course, he's a good clubhouse guy, but he kind of started off slow, and I didn't like the signing at the time. I was kind of even a little down on the Napoli signing, even though I liked him as a player coming in. I knew he's a 35-year-old, and Juan Uribe is getting up there in age as well. I think he's older than Napoli, but Uribe started off he wasn't producing at all, and now he had that streak, 4 homers in 4 days, and it's looking like he's starting to come on a little bit with the bat. I don't know how much longer he's going to be able to play in the field, because he's a little pudgy and he's old and he can't really move well, but I'm definitely coming to appreciate what he brings to the table.
Is it too early to start dreaming?
I'm going to say it's never too early to dream now, because the Cavs gave us hope, and we're going to feel that adrenaline throughout the year from the Cavs winning a championship. Why the hell not? Just go all in with the Indians. We have a ring already. dream your dreams.
Man, you said it. I want to live forever, man. I want to feel like this forever. The initial euphoria is a little bit gone. I'll share my quick story of Sunday night. It's not fascinating. It's not downtown Cleveland or Oracle Arena, and I considered going to Oracle, and I considered even driving back to Cleveland for the parade. And cooler minds eventually prevailed, and but with all the technology out there, I actually watched quite a bit of the parade and the rally on WKYC's Facebook feed, which was kind of simulcast with Fox Sports Ohio or Sports Time Ohio. So I caught a lot of it. I was actually able to Chromecast off my computer and watch the rally the other afternoon. And I'm not sure if they had the dump button on the live TV feed, but they sure didn't on the Facebook feed. And you know what? It was in context. They're swearing for the sake of swearing and making noise for the sake of making noise. But if LeBron James, first he said shit. He said shit just kind of as a verbal pause, if you will. Yeah. And then he didn't care when he said that Timothy Mozgov was a big motherfucker. Right. By the way, this podcast is not suitable for work.
No, I love that because obviously there was going to be some complaints about that, and I think it was Jeff Phelps on the broadcast I was watching that had to apologize. But I'm like, man, this is something that we haven't done in 50 years. It's LeBron James. He's a really good role model off the court. His resume is squeaky clean off the court. It's like, let the guy live a little bit. I didn't have a problem with it, but again, I swear on Twitter sometimes, so I'm all right with cuss words.
That's good. That's good. Are you writing anywhere these days?
Gosh, I haven't. I guess I'm still technically with Predominantly Orange for Fansided. That's a Broncos blog.
Yeah, Cleveland people don't want to hear anything about that. No, you don't want to. You're really analytical. You're one of the brilliant young minds that I know from Cleveland. And it's a limited group, to be fair, but I really enjoyed getting to know you. I've really enjoyed one of your takes in particular. While I had to keep hearing the noise over and over and over again about how superstars deserve to have teams built around them. And you so strenuously disagreed with that take. Are you kind of still in that boat that it's not a franchise's responsibility to build around a superstar per se?
I guess it doesn't irk me as much as it used to. There's a lot of things. This is just part of growing up, and I used to hate it even when I was a kid that people just say, I was a kid back then and I made some mistakes because I always felt that was a cop-out. But I'm starting to kind of get it now because there are things that used to bug me that don't bug me anymore. Maybe that's one of them, but it's, GMs are put there for a reason. They're put there to win championships. And I guess it might be just the terminology. It's like, the GMs don't owe it to a certain player to make them happy. It's only their jobs to do that if it's worth it for the team. Like, I get it now that it's definitely a good thing for the team to build around LeBron James. That bothered me back in the day, and that was kind of stupid, but he's good enough to where you can say you need to build around LeBron James, and that's something that I haven't harped on in a while, but I think it's just a case by case now.
Well, you saw it all over Twitter, Facebook, whatever medium you use, that there's a lot of people, there's always wet blankets. No matter how much you're trying to enjoy yourself, there's always going to be a wet blanket that comes along. They tell Warriors fans they were Lakers fans 3 years ago, and people are reminding, I'm being reminded through tweets and Facebook posts that there were so many people that would have said no the day, up until July 10th, 2014, that they didn't want LeBron James back. And then when it happened, everything was just so majestic and so charming in my mind. It was my birthday, and pardon me. We didn't really get into this throughout the course of the program, but on my birthday he came back. On your birthday he left.
Yeah, that was that was probably the worst birthday that I can remember. I can remember that day pretty well. and my memory is really bad. But yeah, I actually had a softball game that day, and I'm like, in my family, I'm the big sports guy, so it was always people asking me, my family members asking, what do you think he's going to do? And I remember being at my grandpa's house, sitting on his couch, and he's like, what do you think LeBron's going to do? And I wasn't saying this to be hopeful. In my mind, there was no reason for him to leave Cleveland. They were contending every year. This was his hometown, even if he didn't want to admit it. And I guess it was just the ignorance in me. I didn't think there was any reason for him to leave. And I come home from softball that one day on my birthday, and my cake it was an ice cream cake. We were getting ready for it to warm so we can cut it nice and neat. And I'm sitting in my living room, and I'm on my chair, and he says those words, and I'm just kind of stunned. I can't really move, and it was just a numbness that just came over me. And I really did feel personally betrayed. And I always say this to people. I say, he made the decision. I didn't even have my cake yet.
Well, that's such a sad story. That's the worst thing I've ever heard. I really just tried to go through life, and not disavowing that it happened, but try not to let it get me. I think that it got me throughout the summer as they went to training camp, and then they come in and LeBron scores 38 and 3/4. They blow us. I think they beat us like 102-90 or something like that. But it wasn't even that close. So it was just like it was the analogy with the Browns. When they come back, Baltimore wins a Super Bowl, and we're getting our asses kicked for 18 years.
Right.
It just it's like, man, oh shit, this is it's like when Brett Favre shows up at the end of There's Something About Mary. Oh shit, this isn't fair. And we don't have to beat ourselves up like that anymore. I think that's a good note to end on. So, hey, throw your Twitter handle out there so we can get out of here.
I actually have two. One's worth a follow sometimes. It's at Dano708. And then one's kind of my Kent State professional one. It's just my name, Dan Armelli, Armelli. And
are you working with the Kent Stater still?
It's up in the air right now. I have for the past 2 years. Still working on that for this semester, but it's looking like I'll continue to.
Well, good luck with that. Thank you for joining me. Like I said, one of the more brilliant minds around the greater Cleveland area in the year 2016, Dan Armelli. Follow him on Twitter at Dano708. That's going to do it for the program this week. I hope I still feel this good next week, this championship edition of the Lay of the Land podcast. We'll be back next week. Until then, I'm just a swing and a long drive away. And one more thing. Good night, Oakland. We'll let ourselves out.